It begins in the hush before dawn, a silver fog rolling off the Pacific, cool and alive, wrapping itself around the dark hills of Marin and the sleeping city of San Francisco. Somewhere in that shifting mist lies a ribbon of orange steel that has come to define the very image of America's western edge. From a distance, it looks unreal, suspended between sea and sky, a vision more than a bridge. But this place, this breathtaking span called the Golden Gate, is the result of human courage, imagination, and endurance tested against nature itself. Long before the bridge was built, there was only the strait. The waterway that joins the Pacific Ocean to the San Francisco Bay is just a mile wide, but for centuries it might as well have been an ocean unto itself. Spanish explorers called it Chrysopile, the Golden Gate, because of the light that shimmered in its currents at sunset, and because they imagined it as a portal to fortune. In the 19th century, when gold fever swept California, the name felt prophetic. Ships by the hundreds sailed through that narrow, wind-lashed channel, their decks loaded with dreamers, merchants, and miners bound for San Francisco. But the strait was treacherous. Currents tore at the hulls, fog blinded captains, tides shifted without warning. To reach the north side of the bay meant a long ferry ride across cold, unpredictable waters. For decades, the city remained half-isolated, a peninsula dreaming of a bridge. The idea of linking the two shores surfaced as early as the 1870s. Newspapers speculated, engineers scoffed. The winds were too strong, the currents too violent, the depth too great. It cannot be done, they said. Yet every generation brought a few visionaries who refused to accept that verdict. By the 1910s, a few bold engineers began to study the site in earnest. One of them was Joseph Strauss, a fiery, short-statured man from Cincinnati, known for designing hundreds of smaller drawbridges across America. Strauss was more dreamer than diplomat, prone to poetry, defiant against doubt. When he first proposed a bridge across the Golden Gate, many laughed. His earliest sketches showed a clumsy hybrid of cantilevered trusses and suspension cables, heavy, practical, ugly. Critics dismissed him as a crank, but Strauss refused to let go. He traveled the country seeking support, talking to city councils, bankers, and engineers. He declared, "Men have dreamed of spanning the Golden Gate, but I will build it." The problem wasn't just engineering, it was economics. The 1920s were roaring, but San Francisco's business leaders were cautious. A bridge across the strait would cost tens of millions of dollars and faced opposition from ferry companies who feared ruin. They hired lawyers, lobbyists, and even produced pamphlets warning that a bridge would destroy the beauty of the bay. Still, the dream gained ground. In 1923, the San Francisco Chronicle printed a front-page editorial calling the project not only possible, but inevitable. Slowly, the tide turned. Strauss assembled a team of brilliant minds, structural engineer Charles Alton Ellis, who handled the mathematics and design, Leon Moisseiff, who had worked on New York's Manhattan Bridge, and architect Irving Morrow, who brought a sculptor's eye to the lines and color of the structure. Together, they transformed Strauss's ungainly sketches into something extraordinary, a sweeping suspension bridge that would be both functional and beautiful, light and strong, almost musical in its proportions. Then came the crash. In 1929, the stock market collapsed, and with it, nearly every major public project in America froze. Strauss, however, refused to surrender. He appealed to the people directly. The newly formed Golden Gate Bridge and Highway District issued bonds to finance construction, and though banks hesitated, citizens mortgaged their homes to invest. In the depths of the Great Depression, when bread lines wound through city streets, San Franciscans voted to build. Humanity has written its record in the works of its hands. The Golden Gate Bridge will be our mark upon the sky. The first groundbreaking came on January 5, 1933. Men gathered in the cold morning mist at Fort Point. Strauss, dressed in a dark overcoat, stood before reporters as drills thundered in the distance. He raised his hand and said simply, "The bridge that could not be built will now be built." From that day forward, progress unfolded like an epic. Barges floated in the strait carrying concrete and steel. Divers worked in icy, swirling water to set the foundations, sometimes 30 meters below the surface. Each tower's footing was an engineering nightmare. The southern pier anchored to bedrock beneath a raging current. The northern sunk into softer soil near the Marin headlands. Above, iron workers clung to beams hundreds of feet in the air, the wind cutting like knives. They were called skywalkers, men with nerves of iron who balanced on narrow girders with nothing but ocean beneath. Strauss demanded unprecedented safety measures, hard hats, harnesses, and most famously, a massive safety net slung beneath the deck. It was the first of its kind, and it saved 19 lives during construction. The men who survived falls into that net called themselves the Halfway to Hell Club. Even with those precautions, tragedy struck. 11 workers died before the bridge was complete. 11 names now inscribed on memorial plaques that few tourists ever see. The structure itself rose like a dream. By 1935, the two towers stood complete, 746 feet above the water, taller than any bridge tower on Earth. From their summits, workers could see the entire Bay Area laid out like a map. Alcatraz Island, Angel Island, the jagged skyline of the city. When the time came to spin the main cables, spectators watched in awe. A single narrow wire was carried across the strait by a shuttle, then looped back and forth thousands of times until it formed a massive bundle, 36 3/4 inches thick, composed of over 27,500 individual wires. Each cable could hold the weight of 27 fully loaded battleships. Irving Morrow, the architect, now faced his own challenge, the bridge's color. The U.S. Navy suggested black and yellow stripes for visibility, but Morrow insisted on something bold and alive. The steel arrived from the mills coated in a reddish-orange primer to prevent rust, and Morrow was struck by how beautifully it contrasted with the blue sky and green hills. He convinced the board to adopt a color known as International Orange, not quite red, not quite gold, a color that seemed to breathe with the light it's...
By late 1936, the bridge was nearing completion. Despite fog, storms, and financial strain, it was months ahead of schedule and nearly $2 million under budget. Strauss's relentless discipline and the workers' sheer courage had carried it through. On May 27, 1937, the bridge opened to the public. San Francisco woke to a carnival atmosphere. Schools closed, offices emptied. Nearly 200,000 people poured onto the span, walking, skating, and even dancing across the deck. Strauss himself led the procession, walking slowly with a cane, overcome by emotion. Bands played, airplanes flew overhead trailing ribbons. The next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt pressed a telegraph key in Washington, officially opening the bridge to cars. Sirens blared, foghorns bellowed, and ships in the bay fired salutes. For a city clawing its way out of the Depression, it was more than an engineering triumph. It was a promise. As one newspaper put it, the bridge has joined not just two shores, but the past and the future. When night fell, the fog rolled in again, curling around the glowing cables. The orange towers shimmered like twin lighthouses, guiding a nation through darkness. And so began a new chapter. The bridge not just as structure, but as symbol. Through the 1940s, that symbol took on new meaning. After Pearl Harbor, San Francisco became the embarkation point for the Pacific War. The Golden Gate was painted in camouflage tones. Lookout posts and anti-aircraft guns were installed on the headlands. Soldiers sailing to war passed beneath it in silence. Some saluted, some simply stared upward, memorizing the last sight of home. For many, it would be the final glimpse of America. War correspondent Herb Caen later wrote, "The Golden Gate became the farewell arch for the living and the memorial for the dead." When victory finally came in 1945, ships returned to the bay with horns echoing under the arch. People gathered along the shore, waving flags, weeping with relief. The bridge, stripped of camouflage and restored to its blazing orange, once again became a symbol of peace, the world's gateway to renewal. The decades that followed cemented its legend. In the 1950s and 60s, as cars multiplied and California's population exploded, the bridge became the most photographed structure in the United States. It appeared in films, paintings, and postcards. Alfred Hitchcock used its fog-draped silhouette in Vertigo, forever linking it with the city's mystique. Poets called it a harp strung between heaven and earth. Yet, the bridge's beauty carried an unspoken burden. As early as 1937, it began attracting people in despair, those drawn to its height, its silence, its mythic finality. Police officers stationed there tried to intervene, but the pattern continued. Decade after decade, the Golden Gate became both a symbol of hope and a site of heartbreak. The number of suicides quietly climbed into the hundreds, then thousands. Still, the bridge stood. It endured earthquakes, storms, and time. The Loma Prieta earthquake of 1989, magnitude 6.9, shook the Bay Area violently, collapsing parts of the Bay Bridge and killing dozens. But the Golden Gate flexed and swayed as it was designed to, sustaining no structural damage. Engineers marveled at its resilience. One said, "Strauss built it to live." In 1987, for its 50th anniversary, 500,000 people surged onto the deck for a massive celebration. The weight of the crowd caused the center span to flatten, a terrifying moment, yet the bridge held firm once again. It had become more than infrastructure. It was alive. Through the 1990s and 2000s, engineers worked constantly to protect that life. Every inch of steel required repainting, every cable monitoring, every bolt tested. The same fog that gave the bridge its beauty also carried salt and corrosion. Maintenance crews labored year-round. By the time they finished painting one end, they had to start again at the other. In 2018, after years of debate and funding battles, construction began on a suicide deterrent net, stretching the entire length of the bridge, a quiet echo of the net Strauss had hung beneath it 80 years earlier. Completed in 2024, it now stands as a lifeline, invisible from above, but strong enough to save those who fall. Today, nearly 90 years after its opening, the Golden Gate Bridge remains a living paradox. Graceful, yet indestructible, serene, yet tempestuous, romantic, yet tragic. Its 6 lanes carry more than 112,000 vehicles every day. Cyclists and pedestrians still cross its walkways, feeling the vibration of the wind in its cables. Ships pass beneath, fog rolls through like a ghostly tide. From the marine headlands, at sunset, it glows against the Pacific. That same impossible color, international orange, burning through the mist. Tourists line the vista points, their cameras clicking, but even the most modern lens cannot quite capture it. Because the Golden Gate Bridge isn't just a sight, it's a feeling. The intersection of ambition, art, and endurance. It is the dream of human beings to transcend limitation, to shape beauty from hardship, to reach across what divides. As the light fades and the fog returns, the bridge hums faintly, a deep metallic resonance. The wind threads through the cables, turning the structure into a vast instrument. Some nights it sings, low and mournful. Some nights it whispers. Those who know its history can almost hear the voices of the builders, the echoes of engines, the laughter of 1937, the silent prayers of soldiers sailing to war. And still it stands, unwavering, luminous, eternal. When you walk across the bridge today, you can feel that history beneath your feet. The stubbornness of Strauss, the precision of Ellis, the vision of Morrow. You can sense the lives it carried, the dreams it fulfilled, the tears it witnessed. It has outlasted its skeptics, its storms, its century. It is not merely a bridge. It is the heartbeat of a city, the signature of a coast, the shimmering threshold of a continent. As Joseph Strauss wrote when the last rivet was driven, "At last the mighty task is done, resplendent in the western sun. The bridge looms proudly in the sky, its towers pierce the clouds on high." And there, in the hush of a fog-shrouded dawn, as the first light spills over the Pacific and touches the orange steel, you see it, the impossible made real, the dream made solid, a gateway not just between lands, but between what we are and what we dare to be. The Golden Gate Bridge, not simply a link of steel and cable, but a declaration cast across the sea that human vision can outshine the fog forever.